I was standing on my yoga mat as I did, and I closed my eyes, and suddenly everything went dark. When I say dark, I mean dark. It was pitch black. I don't want to become too doom and gloomish, but the earth is flexing and the earth is changing. And if we don't change alongside it, then we will be ejected, literally.
So if we go within and do the work, is it a situation where we could change the future events? I am here today with Phillipe Roels, and he is going to share with us his Kundalini Awakening. Phillipe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on your show. It's great. Great to be here.
Of course. So I would love to hear about the journey that led up to your Kundalini Awakening and any relevant details that you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, it's quite a long story, so I'll try and keep it a little bit short. The actual Kundalini awakening itself was my second awakening. I had my first awakening back in late 94, where I had a massive surge of love from source. It was like a lightning discharge that coursed through my body, and life changed after that. I started to become very interested in the spiritual side, and it was just changed. I became hungry for knowledge, and life went on from there, searching for information, and then finding information, meeting people, like-minded people. So, yeah, it became almost like an obsession to find knowledge and to discover knowledge. And then I started to channel information from source. At the time, I wasn't sure what it was, but I had these thoughts that would come to me, and I started to write them down. And eventually, over the months that followed, this developed into a story. And basically, I was quite shocked when I was editing my second book recently. I discovered that some of the information that I was given back in 98 was actually with what's happening in the world right now. So that was a bit of a, oh my God moment, because at the time when I got the information, I wasn't aware what was to come. It was quite a long time ago. So after that, I started to do tarot readings and use all the psychic skills. I learned automatic writing. I became a healer, and my journey slowly progressed in that manner. I started to communicate with outside sources. I was communicating with someone from the Pleiades, and for a little while, and also I actually connected with these cetaceans, which are the whale species on the planet here, which surprised me as well because I wasn't anticipating that to happen. What they said to me is that they held the energy for the planet. They were best custodians of the planet, these large mammals we have in the ocean. So that was quite something to have this random communication that just arrived out of nowhere. I was quite new at this, so it was quite strange at the time. Then I became interested in meditation. I used to belong to a small group, a spiritualist church, and one of the ladies used to hold meditation circles, and she suggested that I join the circle. So I did, and I knew nothing about meditation at the time, so I joined in. And for some reason, I just took to it like a duck to water. Next thing I knew, I was holding meditations in my home, and people were just expecting me to lead the meditation. So I was almost forced into taking the meditation leading role, which I loved. I loved doing that. And things just progressed from there. I just became more and more experienced, and I moved ahead quite quickly. And then I started to actively start teaching meditation techniques because they just came to me naturally. So that was for a few years. And since then, I've been teaching on and off as required, small groups, etc. So we skip forward now to my second awakening, which was much later on. It was in 2000 and early 2017 was the second awakening. And the precursor to that was I had a dark night of the soul episode, which I'd never had before. I'd never heard of it before. And this just happened. And for people that have had it, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say when If you thought you felt depressed in your normal life, Dark Night of the Soul takes you so much deeper. And it's not a case of feeling suicidal. It's a case of you just want to end. You want to escape. So it's a wanting to escape. Not you don't even think about suicide. You just want to escape this life. It's a very, very strange experience. And but it had to be a rock bottom situation for me to actually launch into the next phase. And the next phase was to go within introspective searching, which I started doing. At the same time, I was doing what I call a technique I developed, which I call moving meditation, where it's basically using using yoga stances. You start off and you allow the energy to actually physically move your body and take control of your body. And this is quite important to do that phase because we don't actually know exactly what the body needs to clear trauma and to clear energy that's locked in parts of the body. At this point in time, the higher self needs to come in and actually show you how to do this. Because you might think you can do it. There's a lot of yogic techniques that you think you might be able to use, but I was showing some very strange and put in some very strange positions by my higher self, which I never knew existed. And I discovered Egyptian yoga through this way, which I didn't know existed until that point. I found myself in some strange postures. I researched them and I discovered that some of these postures were ancient Egyptian postures, which you can see in the pyramids. The original yoga comes from Egypt. They only had 24 postures at the time. And this was taught by the sages and the priests. And I didn't know this existed. And I was doing these poses. I was allowing myself to move my body. If you've never done moving meditation before, it's like somebody's moving you, but it's like a magnetic force. It's like a magnet force and actually moves your limbs, moves your body, and you have to surrender. You have to allow. So all those techniques you learn at the same time. So it's important to connect with the higher self. It's essential to do that. Without connecting with the higher self, it can be very difficult to actually get to the point where you will have the Kundalini experience that launches you into the next phase. So this took quite a while, quite a few months of this work. And it was really, really tough. It was at times very painful, being locked in these strange yoga positions for 10, 15 minutes. But I knew that this needed to be done. So I allowed this to happen. And there's a reason why you need to allow this to happen, because this is when you're able to unlock trauma. Could be past trauma from a past life, could be trauma from this life, could be trauma from childhood. And you discover these things as you go along, because as you unlock the trauma. So this is what I learned during this phase, all these techniques on how to do that. And then later on, I got to a point where I didn't realize I was making the amount of progress that I was just turning up on the mat every single day. And I was just connecting with my higher self and we were doing the work. Sometimes I'd be on the mat for an hour. Sometimes I'd be on the mat for up to 3 to 4 hours. And time just stood still and I was just doing this work. And one day, this is just before the Kundalini experience, I woke up and I walked into my front room and I looked out the window at a park in front of my place. And I looked out into the park and suddenly I felt different. I felt, this is very strange. Because of my upbringing and my experiences when I was younger, I've always been a very anxious person. And anxiety was basically my best friend for most of my life. I looked out the window and suddenly I was no longer anxious. And I felt totally alien. I didn't understand why I didn't feel anxious. So I said, right, went onto the mat. Let me go, I'm going to investigate, do a meditation. Let's go and search for this anxiety. And I scanned my aura energetically to see if this was hiding. And I purposefully tried to recreate anxiety. And it didn't work. And then I realized something big has changed it. But I still hadn't worked out that it was because I've done all this clearing work. because eventually you don't only work on working on blocks, you end up working with the energy centers, the chakras, and clearing those, restoring flow through that. And it's only once you restore the flow through the energy centers that the Kundalini experience can happen. Because it has to have a clear path for it to work. So yeah, this lasted quite a while, and I felt very strange for a couple of weeks. Suddenly, I didn't have this compulsion to feel love from anybody. I didn't desire to be loved. I was single at the time. I didn't desire to have a partner, to have love from a partner. And I felt this was the weirdest part. It's not to desire the partnership of someone. It was gone, and I couldn't work out why. It took a while for me to come to terms with that. Once I worked it out and understood, then of course it was okay. But at the time, I felt totally alien, and it was only because of this clearing work that I've done. And then one day, this Kundalini experience happened, and then this changed things again dramatically. I remember standing at the top of my mat, as I always do, and just relaxing and surrendering and just listening to what the instruction was, what we were going to do on that day. And I was simply told to lie down on the mat. So I thought, oh, this is okay. We're going to do a meditation today. So I did that. I lay down. And as soon as I settled myself, I started to feel this energy build up in my base energy chakra, the lowest one, number one at the bottom, base of the spine. I had been used to the activity. I didn't know what it felt like. It feels like when they call it the snake, it does feel like something's crawling around and then moving around. And it's really weird, like pulsating and twisting and turning. It's sort of, for the men, it's the base of the spine. And for the women, it's at the cervix, where the base of the base chakra, where the source is. So for both male and female, predominantly you feel it, the activity and the pressure, the force you feel at the perineum. So you feel this weird agitation moving. So I was used to that because I had that for a long time before that. So I wasn't too concerned. But then it changed. It got a little bit more serious. It got a bit more active. I thought, okay, what's going on here? And then the energy started to build up. And I realized, okay, now this is not normal. Something is really happening now. And then I had this momentary feeling of fear of the unknown. And it was so strange because I was lying down with my eyes closed, and all of a sudden I felt like fear was approaching from all around me, as if I was in the middle of the woods, and the wolves were approaching from all angles. I had these eyes, this fear that was trying to get to me. And I knew that if I didn't beat back this fear, that this event wasn't going to happen, even though I didn't know what it was. It wasn't going to happen. So it took me a while. So I had to surrender. At the same time, I had to fight off the fear. So it was quite a package deal, but I was able to actually achieve it. And suddenly this force was unleashed, and it was just something, even to this day, it's just an incredible thing. The only way I can describe it is if a fire engine pulled up outside your house and firemen came in with a fire hose and plugged you in with a fire hose and then turned the pressure up to the max. So you can imagine the force, and it literally poured up through me, through my head back on the mat, and was pouring at the top of my head. And I couldn't move, not that I wanted to, but I was frozen in place, and I was just at the mercy of this rush of energy. And it just kept going and going and going, and everything disappeared. Where I was disappeared, emotions disappeared, everything was gone. I was just lost in this torrent of power, force that flowed through me. And I thought it lasted about 20 minutes. And in the end, when it stopped, I looked at my clock And it had been just over an hour and 20 minutes. I'd lost all that time, but it felt much shorter. And I was completely exhausted. I felt like I'd run a marathon with like a 50-pound backpack. I was completely wiped out. I think I can't remember clearly. I think I went to bed straight after that was that afternoon, and I slept all the way through because I was completely wiped out by this experience. So yeah, it doesn't, Kundalini energy, the Kundalini event doesn't just happen. As you can tell, what I've described, there's certain parameters, there's a clearing that needs to happen before this flow can happen.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, I really like the fact that you're highlighting the point that there's a clearing that has to happen first,
Yep,
because we've all heard the stories of people who have had Kundalini awakenings and then experienced psychosis afterwards. Do you think that's possibly because that clearing hadn't happened
abso-
properly?
absolutely, absolutely. And the funny thing is, what I experienced, I've read, I read quite a lot of books and stuff, and I haven't found an experience like I've described that I've been through, the clearing part, the connection with the higher self first. It's not written anywhere. And I was like, but yeah, people are reading this about this, but they don't actually know. And I've been through this, and somehow, okay, I know what it's about. So it sort of, and I wrote my second book because of that. But I have to explain to people how this happens and why this happens. So yeah, that was quite, that was quite something.
In the old days, this process was always undertaken under the oversight of a spiritual master. And there's this whole process that people had to go through to do it safely. But in today's world, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, in some religious circles, you can go attend a service and have a Kundalini experience without having any idea what's going on, or even in the New Age, some prominent New Age teachers are giving people Kundalini experiences, and then they have negative effects from it. So I think that your point is so important. What advice would you have for people who are wanting to undertake this journey to do it safely?
To do it safely, you have to go through the preliminary stages.
Hmm.
You have to be prepared to go within, and you have to be prepared to do the introspective work. And this is what I describe in the stuff that I teach is first you have to move into truth, because if you're not living in truth, then you've got no chance. So first you have to be based in truth. And then secondly, you have to go and face the mirror. You have to face yourself. Then you have to decide, who am I? The good points and the bad points. And once you've decided, made your list of good points and bad points, you can choose to change the bad points if you consider them the bad points, or you can leave them. As long as you know exactly who you are, you have to know who you are because you need a foundation to work from. Once you know who you are, you know what your energy is. Once you know what your energy is, any energy that comes externally to you, you will be able to identify because you will know it's not yours. And this for me was a big relief because once I did that, because I didn't realize I was empathic. And my whole life, my younger life was a complete nightmare because I was that. And I felt other people's emotions. I thought they were mine. And even my marriage broke down because of that. Because my emotions thought were mine, were not mine. And now I just became a non-person. So it's very important to move into truth, to face yourself. That's the very, very basis. And then after that, then you can start looking at fear-based trauma, karmic debt, because all karmic debt across all lives are coming into this life. So they all come into this life, and we deal with all those energies, all those negative energies, if you want to call them that, in this life. So when we start doing the clearing work, it doesn't necessarily mean we're dealing with trauma and energy blocks from this life. It could be from another life. So for that reason, if I identify that with someone, then I'll do some regression work with them as well to try and identify where it's regression inner child work predominantly. to go and identify and realize where the issue was. And the biggest secret I found is that we need to work out individually at what point in our life did we give up our personal power. So we go back to a point in predominantly happens in childhood where we surrender, we give up. We say, okay, I give up. I'm not going to try and fight the system. And we give away our power. We accept that we are less than others because we are told we need to behave. We need to be part of the crowd. You don't know anything because you're too young, and we get suppressed. So we need to go back and identify exactly the moment that we lost. That's a big moment as well that needs to be found to personal empowerment. Self-worth can come back. So that's the beginning. So that's quite an important thing to do. That's also part of the clearing process. And once we restore the flow, then you're ready for the Kundalini experience. But it's not something that you should actively seek out. It will find you when you are ready, basically. And that's the safest way. There's no shortcut. I see people on social media, oh, how do we raise your vibration quickly? How do we do this? I said, now you're too late. You should have started this work ages ago. You can't just do it now in 5 minutes.
Right.
There's no shortcut.
So from your perspective, what exactly is happening during a Kundalini awakening?
So basically, it opens you up to a higher perspective and opens all the channels so you can become more receptive to high frequencies, to your higher self, to the source. Then you're able to accept more complex, more in-depth teachings, and you're able to move ahead and raise your personal frequency. Basically, that's what the Kundalini is for. It's like the fireman's hose coming into the drive and just chewing out everything, hosing everything out, clearing out everything. So you basically become a blank slate energetically, because then you can start to resonate with higher realms or higher frequencies. And this is what happened. This is what happened to me. Suddenly I start to have these experiences and I was like, whoa, which was cool because I'm up for it. This is what I'm like to do. I'm an explorer. But it was straight after that, things just started happening. And for about 3 months, it was non-stop action. In my little place, there's people from other dimensions used to turn up. And while I was on the mat, there was people doing yoga with me. There's people coming to watch me doing my postures. And I'm talking about greys and aliens and all sorts. People turning up. Portals opening up in my bedroom in the middle of the night. People stepping through. There was just, tremendous stuff, which is exciting. But at the time, like, whoa, what was that?
So
But yeah.
I'd love to hear some more about those experiences. You've mentioned to me in your introduction video that you went to your home planet. Could you share about that?
Yeah. So again, there's a massive backstory with that. But to cut it short, I incarnated for a reason. And I didn't know the reason for a long time. I suspected when I was younger that I was different, but I didn't understand why. And it was only when after I had the Kundalini Awakening that I saw why. Before that, I channeled all this information that I'd written down, and I'd started the Universal Truths brand, and I made a course, and I started teaching, etc. And I knew that I needed to do this. I felt a strong connection that I needed to do this. But after the Kundalini experience, then I had confirmation, and that was quite something. And even later on, in the last 2 months, I've been shown exactly my entire backstory from the inception of my first soul creation. So the whole story, and I now have insight into all that, which is quite nice to have because a lot of us, were looking for that. But I was standing on my yoga mat as I did, where I would start. And I closed my eyes because I always practice with my eyes closed so I can feel the energy and I can feel the movement, and I'm not distracted by the physical exterior, my surroundings. And suddenly everything went dark. When I say dark, I mean, dark. It was pitch black. And for a moment, I didn't know where I was. I looked around for a reference, as you do. So I looked for my hands. There was nothing there. I looked where I thought my legs would be, down at my legs. There was nothing there. And I couldn't find any sign of my body. And for a split second, I was not afraid, but I was stunned at this because I wasn't expecting it. But that was quickly replaced by this very warm feeling, and tremendous peace arrived. And it's the peace that I've never experienced before in this life. And then I realized where I was. I was outside. I was in the void. I was outside, basically. I'd left creation and I was out there in the ocean of pure consciousness. There was nothing anywhere. And I thought, this is quite cool. I'm going to hang out here for a while because this feels really, really nice. But being the avid explorer, I thought, right, okay, enough of this. Now there must be something to explore here. So I started to look around. Of course, there was nothing to see, but suddenly there was something to see. So I looked down at where my feet were, and then I saw what looked like a huge cloud, multicolored rainbow cloud, like a swirling cloud of energy, quite large. And I thought, oh, this looks cool. I'll go there. And as soon as with my intention, I decided I'd go there. It was in the flesh. Bang, like that, I was back in the physical world, back on my mat where I'd started. So that took me weeks to fathom and gather and work out where I'd been. And I read evidence in the Egyptian Book of the Dead about this as well. And it made perfect sense, what they were teaching and what I'd experienced. And again, it was another, oh my God, moment. So that didn't stop there. But the next experiences after that was, again, starting on my mat. And it was suddenly, this is a few days later, I was aware that there was somebody standing in front of me. Of course, with my eyes closed. But I could sense and I could suddenly start to see with my third eye who was standing in front of me. And there was this beautiful blonde woman with these almond eyes, tremendous blue almond-shaped eyes, much larger than normal human eyes, standing directly in front of me, like a foot in front of me. And I felt this tremendous love, similar to I had my first awakening experience, this tremendous amount of love. And then we started to communicate telepathically. And she explained to me who she was and that she was my life partner in the fifth dimension. And she had come to check on me and see how I was doing. And she gave me a full report on my life up to this point, which is quite something. And said that I've been doing very well. I've been progressing very well. And I thought that was quite nice to hear. And then I asked, so what should I do going forward? And she said to me, just pure and simple, just be honorable. And I thought, okay, I actually would like more than that. But that was it. That was it. Later on, when I went away and I meditated and contemplated being honorable, oh my God, then I saw the enormity. Not that I wasn't, but then I saw the enormity of the task. And then she took my hand, that was the strangest thing. She held my hand, and as we were talking, when she held my hand, the level of love just went through the roof, and I just broke down because I just wanted to escape. I wanted to be back there with her again. I wanted to go back to that place where I originated from. And she squeezed my hand to make the experience even more realistic, more physical. And that just made it even worse for me. It was really, really a struggle. And I asked her to show me images of home, and she did. So this is when I saw the images of home. My place is a small habitat, probably like if you imagine a bunch of igloos stuck together with a center one and smaller ones attached. And that's basically what the habitats look like. And mine and hers is separate from the main city. So I can still see the image. We're in a large green field, and in the distance in the north is a range of mountains which they've got a purplish, bluish color. And on this side, there's a big forest. And on the other side of the forest is where the town is. And it's like smaller villages that are clustered and grown together. There's no roads because vehicles don't connect with the ground. And inside the habitat, temperature's controlled telepathically. The walls radiate the heat. The walls radiate the light. They resonate at a certain frequency. So there's no maintenance is required. There's basically a self-cleaning environment. So yeah, it was, and then I saw our bedroom down some stairs, and it was just amazing just to see all these images again. And then it was time for her to leave. And again, it was really tough for me to let go. But over the 2-3 weeks that followed, she came back regularly. And when I say came back, 3 times she came back here to my place. And the rest of the time we met on her ship in the other dimension. And we traveled to places, and it was just great, amazing. And then I understood that, yeah, between us, we had chosen for me to incarnate, to come and help with the changes, to come and impart and be a channel for the source to bring information that's required, like the clearing, the Kundalini, all those things, the practical aspect. So, yeah, so I've had contact with the source in the last 3 months. I've been called and I've been chatting. It's chatting with the source, and I was given the timeline of what things are happening. And then these 3 months leading up to the end of December is the onset of the changes that people need to go in. Because if you don't, it's going to get trickier from next year. It gets way worse, way harder.
Mhm.
So it's time to do the work here.
Wow, I have so many more questions now. So how much time do you have?
Oh, I've got loads of time.
So you said that you met on her ship. What was
Yeah.
what was the ship like?
So it was about, let me see, they converted. So across is probably about 90 feet, because you prefer feet to meters, don't you?
Yeah, we use feet here, but either one is fine.
Yeah, and so probably about 30 meters across from the one side of the disc to the other. I only saw one side of it. It was split into 2 sections. And when I arrived, because the funny thing is, when you start operating at this level, because meditation it's such a fantastic tool, and people don't realize all of this happens because you can move consciousness. You can move your awareness within consciousness, which is within dimension, within frequency. So what happens with these meetings, because you can't leave this dimension with your physical body. It's not designed to do that. You can only move to another dimension, to another place. You have to move your awareness into that place. Once you get to that place, then you can construct another physical body, which is what actually happened in this case. So what we did in this case was, let's say, for example, you and I plan to meet in Miami. So for example, so you'll move your consciousness to that place, and I'll move my consciousness to that place, and we'll meet there. We'll have the meeting like that. That's basically how it happens. So she initiated the meeting. I ended up traveling. When I say traveling, you don't travel anywhere, you just appear. Because once you exit this dimension, there is no movement. Everything moves around you. Everything is stationary. It's only here in this dimension that we've got movement, as it were. Otherwise, it's created. Otherwise, and that's another type of movement. So I arrived, and I remember standing in the middle of this half of the ship, with this wall separating the other section, and she was standing in front of me, and she beckoned me towards her, and in front of her there was this little table, probably about 3 feet high, and the size of a laptop. It was like a perspex, transparent, plasticky glass type contraption, and there was the shape of a hand on it. And I understood that I had to put my hand on this contraption, which I did. And in doing that, the ship actually is its energy with yours. So it reads it's like a bio, like we have bio scan, fingerprint recognition, but this is at the frequency, your body frequency level. So it reads your frequency and it ties you into the ship. And then you're able to communicate directly with the ship telepathically. And you can tell the ship to go here, there, this side, that side, do whatever. And if you step outside, it'll follow you and you can decide the distance, the position, the place, the dimension. It will stay at that distance and it will basically track your position to wherever you are. Or you can dispatch it somewhere else and you can record. So it's basically like a very, very intelligent drone, basically.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That you manage. And then it was like a half the ship. And this side where the roof came down with some very large windows. You could see out into space. Somebody came in from the other compartment and walked in and sort of acknowledged me. And I was a little bit taken aback because it wasn't, I wasn't a stranger to them. Let's put it that way. So it was like I was part of the crew, basically. And I don't know why that is yet, but maybe I'll find out. And to the left behind me, again, towards the windows, there's a long console. There was 2 or 3 other people sitting at this console. And it was like the Star Trek, where they do the navigation and stuff. And so we went and sat down at this, there was like a oval bench. We sat down at this little console, long console that scanned, that went all the way around us. And we sat down and she sat to my left. And then she put her head on my shoulder and we paused, what I call to take a picture. And this is not a picture of that you do, like we take pictures with the phone or camera. This is an energetic image that's stored in consciousness. So it's a memory. So we create a memory that we can both access, and I can still see it, visualize it now for that particular moment. Yeah. So that was that particular visit. So we had a few things like that, but it slowly started to fade. I think because I wasn't meant to. I think once you have your full awakening, the ascension, once you have that, then you are permanently in that zone and you can travel, navigate at will. But this was just because of the amount of power and frequency that I've been put under, I could do these things. So for about 3-4 months, it was nonstop. I could feel ships hovering above. I could see people looking at me through the windows, people standing on the mat behind me, holding my arms. And it was a bit freaky, but it was nice. It was amazing. And some of the work I was doing was that tough. I think they could actually tell that I was really physically struggling because one day, one of them actually came in and I was doing some leg raises and some quite strong ones. And when I went to put my legs down, I was quite exhausted. Somebody grabbed my legs and actually help my legs down for me. I was like, oh, that's very kind. Somebody coming to help me take my leg down for me. So it was amazing. It was an amazing period.
Wow. So another thing that you mentioned is that you saw the timeline of future events. Are you able to share with us what's coming up in the next year and how people can prepare?
Yeah, I don't want to become too doom and gloomish, but people need to pull their finger out and start doing the work because the weather's going to get worse next year. There's going to be a lot more seismic activity. The earth is flexing and the earth is changing. And if we don't change alongside it, then we will be ejected, literally. So the earth doesn't need us. We need the earth. It can survive without us. So we need to change alongside. And this is why it's important now to do this introspective work, to raise your vibration, raise your frequency. And it's if you're on the path of ascension, then you will be automatically, it's almost like a guarantee. But you need to move and choose to move onto that path. And this is where you need to set your intention, and you need to go within and decide, okay, I'm going to do this. It's never too late, but it can become too late, because some of the comments that I received back from Source back in the late 90s was, yeah, if you don't do the work now, but later you'll wish that you had. And this is the time now we're getting into, where if you don't do the work now, you will wish that you had. So it's going to get more tricky next year. Unfortunately, it's not all good news. But if you're doing the work, then you will feel the changes. And actually, this weekend, there was a tremendous energy shift where you can actually feel, I could feel my light body and moving, changing. So it's, things are definitely happening as I was told. There's a climactic event in middle of June, end of June next year. I wasn't told exactly what it is. What I was told is that the weather's going to change. It's going to get worse. We're going to get stronger storms. We're going to get some volcanic activities. Conflict is going to be on the increase, unfortunately. And this is because people refuse to let go of fear-based beliefs. They're refusing to go within and to do the work, basically. Because those of us that are awake and doing the work are slowly moving over to a love-based environment, which is what's required for the high frequencies. And the low frequency, fear-based belief system is going to drag people down. And it actually saddens me to see that there's not that many people doing the work. And that's quite sad to see. I'm hoping that things will change. But this is basically the timeline I was given. Where you choose or not to put that in the video is entirely up to you. But honestly, this is what I was told. And I was told this, and I was given this information back in 98, and it's in my second book. You can read it in there. In the last days, you will see the ships in the sky, and the sky will be red. The weather will change. All those things were given to me back then. And now I'm seeing the pattern. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I was told. And it was given to me again 2 months ago.
So if we go within and do the work, is it a situation where we could change the future events, or is it more of a situation that we would ascend spiritually so that the physical events wouldn't affect us? Or how does that work in your experience?
I believe if you do the work, then yeah, you will get there. But we need to get started. You need to get the work. This is like the last hurrah. If you don't do the work now, then yeah, it's people. I think you get different categories of incarnations. Incarnations of people that are the big numbers. Let's call them the ignorant ones, the ones that aren't enlightened to awakening, etc. They have no clue, and they have no chance. Even if we sat them down and explained to them exactly how everything works, they would not believe you. It's just not their path. It's never going to happen. Then there's another group of people who have been awakened, who are aware, but are not choosing to do the work for whatever reason. They're not going within. They're not doing the clearing, etc. They're not choosing the path of ascension. For them, that's the dangerous part, where they might realize a bit too late, oh my God, I should have done the work. And then those that have chosen the ascension path early on, of course, then they will be okay. But we're hoping that with the numbers, we can raise the frequency, and we can potentially maybe avoid some of these dramatic events. But if I've been told this, then I think it's unlikely. I think the weather is going to get worse. The planet is shifting. And the thing is, with the planet goes through cycles, ice ages, etc. Goes through cycles. And all we've done since the Industrial Revolution, we've pumped carbon into the atmosphere, and all we've done is really accelerate the process. It would have taken a lot longer, so we've just made it a bit quicker. But it was always the case. And I believe we've There's been previous civilizations before us that were on this planet that were wiped out because of these big events. So it's it's quite serious stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also wanted to go back to one of your previous points about the whales being the custodians of the earth. I was just watching the documentary Seaspiracy last night on
Oh yeah,
Netflix. And it's a lot of the same things you're talking about, how we're like not being good guardians of this planet, and the things that we're doing are speeding this process of climate change along. And one of the things that they mentioned is how important the big sea mammals like the whales and the dolphins are literally the heart of the planet. And if we
yeah,
continue overfishing them and their population dies down, then the rest of the life in the ocean is also going to disappear. And if that happens, then we're all gone.
that's it. Yeah, absolutely. So we basically are our worst enemies, and it's a fear-based belief is developed because the materialism and the capitalism and all this has created fear and created people feeling less, and the divisions, the separation of between the humans in humanity. Unfortunately, that's the way. But it was always meant to be this way, apparently. It was, this is why we came.
Mm.
This is why we came to Earth to learn. People come and learn experiences and then they leave. But what they do once the planet changes, potentially they could go to another dimensional planet elsewhere to go and continue with their learning. I've heard other stories where apparently you have to wait, souls have to wait for the planet to regenerate so they can come back. So there's a lot of different schools of thought about how the system on the planet works. And for me, the jury's still out there. I'm not going to commit to any of those theories until I get hardcore evidence, which I will get eventually.
Well, Philippe, thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation. I've learned so much from you. Do you have one final positive message that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I think people just have to be brave. Be a little bit brave and, and, and just look at yourself in the mirror and see who you are. It's not that scary once you start doing it. And if you need support, there's a lot of people out there like myself that are willing to help you to help through the process. And this is my mission, is to help people with this process. So it's not all doom and gloom. It is hard work. It's the hardest work that any human will ever do. This process of change, because we don't like change, but it's good. It's hard work, but it's exciting, and the discoveries are tremendous. So I advise everybody to have a go.
Thank you so much. And could you share with the viewers where they can find you?
They can find me on my website, which is universaltruths.co.uk. I have a Facebook group they can join. They can sign up and find me on there. My Instagram as well, but predominantly my Facebook group is about updating information I discover. I publish the information in there. Also, I have a blog on my website, which I keep updated so they can keep tabs on that as well. And also, anytime anybody wants to ask questions, they just need to get in touch. It's not a problem. That's why I'm here.
Wonderful. I'll have those links in the description. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and comment with your thoughts and opinions. And check the description box for the links to my TikTok and Instagram, where I share the more personal side of my life, my website where I share my paintings and merch, and also the Be a Guest link for anybody who's interested in sharing their story. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.